So if you see here, form.xml. So we have starter dependencies for JPA, we have starter dependency for security, we have starter dependency for web, and we have starter dependency for this S2 database. So only 3 to 5 dependency we need to add. Automatically it will add rest of the jar files for us. Here if you see, these many jar files are loaded using these dependencies. And also if you want to explain what is Spring Boot and its annotation, so this is the annotation. Spring Boot application it is a combination of @enable auto configuration, component scan, and Spring Boot configuration. If you see here, it is the combination of three: Spring Boot configuration, enable auto configuration, and component scan. So like that you can explain. Also we have Angular CI. We have created this object using spring.io, so that we need not to worry about to create separate folder. It automatically create ready-made application for us, so that just we need to provide some configuration and then we need to run this application. So this is also used for rapid application development. Spring Boot came because of rapid application development. So also it allows to create standalone applications. So by Spring Boot we are not going to deploy, we are not going to create any jar file or any configuration like in earlier system. What we need to do, we need to configure our Apache Tomcat, then we need to deploy this war file into that Apache Tomcat, then we need to run. But in the case of Spring Boot, we need not to worry about, just it will create standalone application and embedded Tomcat added. If you see this jar file here, so embedded Tomcat is part of this Spring Boot starter-web. Also it manages profile. Just we need to provide multiple profiles, like if you want to define your dev, then you have to provide application-dev.properties file. So multiple profiles you can manage here. Also actuators work under, so for health check and all you can use actuator. So like this I have explained, you can read more points and explain, but it was not lengthy interview, so I explained and he satisfied with my answers. Moving forward, what are the annotations you have used in your project? So for in my project, majorly I've started from @Spring Boot application, then started from @REST controller. I can explain you from here. I will create one controller here, my REST controller. So I have used @REST controller. So REST controller is nothing but combination of @response body and response body and controller. So if he asked what is the difference between controller, normal controller, and REST controller, this is the difference between controller and REST controller. So REST controller is latest. Also AutoWire I explained, AutoWire for dependency injection. And for repository we have used @repository. So this repository we can use above the interface, JP interface, @service. In the service class we can write our business logic. So I'm writing inside the class, but that doesn't mean it will be here. We need to create separate class here, and then we need to define this repository, this service. @bean also you can define in any configuration file. So @bean. So more or less these are the annotation what we have used. Apart from that, for Kafka we have used @, not for Kafka. Yeah, @get mapping, @post mapping. So more or less you can explain how many you have used in your current project. So this is the fourth question. And fifth one, how you are getting work and how many members in your team. So we are following agile methodology. We are following agile. In agile, we are working sprint wise. So we have a sprint. Sprint contains one Jira board. This Jira board came from our backlog. From backlog it is coming. So product owner will provide us this Jira board based on the priorities and a lot of factors match there. We need to match. Then we will have one Jira board or we have our own backlog. Scrum Master will take care of this part, and then we have sprint planning. In sprint planning we will understand how much time this work will take, and then we will create stories accordingly, and we will take few stories in our sprint and we will divide stories amongst the developers and we have to complete within the sprint itself. We have 7 members in our team including manager. So like this I have explained, and you can explain more if he asked about any one of these technologies. Which technology you are using? Are you using Jira, Agile methodology? Are you following or not? This is the question related to they want to understand whether you are using Agile or not. I explain this question with respect to Agile only because popular one. Then sixth question, how to deploy app other than Apache server or how to change embedded Tomcat. So for this we need to exclude this Apache Tomcat from this pom.xml here. So here we need to exclude Apache Tomcat here, and then we need to include some other server here. So to exclude, we need to have one exclusion tag here, and we need to provide this dependencies so that we can exclude and later we can add some other server like Jetty or anyone you can include here. So just you need to change the pom.xml and it will work for you. So what is the difference between path param and query param? So in the API, okay, let me do it like, okay, in the API, suppose we have to find the list of user. Okay, so in that case, what we are writing some HTTP colon double slash. Okay, some domain name we are passing here. Okay, then we are passing our API name. Let's say it's API, and we want to access user with ID 1. If you want to write URI like this, then you need to go for path param because it's a part of path. Your parameter is a part of your path. But in the case of query parameter, it support only key value. So it has one key and value. Similar code if you want to write using query parameter, then you need to do here provide one question mark, then whatever the ID you have and whatever the value you have. And here if you want to pass two variables, then you have to do like this. And in the case of this query parameter, you have to provide a status is equal to 3. So if you want to separate, then you have to use and. First of all, you have to start with question mark and it's a key and value and status 3. So this is the main difference between path param and query param. This is related to path param and this is related to query param. So can you write the URL like this? You can write the URLs. How to deploy your code using CI/CD pipeline. So CI/CD pipeline deploy our application directly because just we need to push our code using Bitbucket and we need to trigger the build and it will automatically deploy our application into the environment. Whatever the environment you have like dev, UAT or prod. So accordingly you have to prepare your local files or profiles and you can deploy directly. Manual intervention is required only. Just we need to 2-3 clicks you will be able to deploy your application and dev. How to trigger the build? Like I said earlier, we have one dashboard available for this and there we can trigger our build. How to find list of users using ID and name in JPA. So to find, so we have finders method inside the JPA. Okay, so just we need to write like this list of users and we need to write find by ID and name. So like this we have to create our method inside repository. So whatever the parameters I have, id and name, this is a pseudocode. You can use integer id, string name, and @param. So if I want to sort the list, whatever the list you are getting here, that list, if you want to sort this list, we have two things. One is comparable interface, second is comparator. So using comparator and comparable we can sort the list. I will explain you how to sort this list. I will create one list. Okay, I have user. Okay, users I have. Inside the users we have int id and string name, and I have getter and setter method inside it. First of all, to initialize I have one constructor. Go to source, generate constructor using fields, and then I have getter and setter methods. Okay, fine. So I have created user, and this user I have list of users somewhere. I have one test class, there I will create main method. Inside this main method I will create list of users, array list, and we will add few users inside this. We have to create users object. ID is 1, name is John. Similarly I will add multiple users, like the ID of this is 102, this is Mike, 5, Aman. So these are the users we have in this list. Now we have added. So now I want to sort this. I will create one toString method so that it will print object instead of reference. So override toString method. Yeah, generate toString method. So I want to sort this list. So first approach, we have comparable. Using comparable we can sort it. But what in that case we have collections class available, and we can write sort, and we have to pass this list to be sorted. So what is the error here? So we can't pass this class this list directly because user doesn't implement comparable interface. Okay, so I am implementing this interface. Inside, instead of t, you have to provide this user object, and then you have to override it. Compare, it has only one method, that is compare to method. Okay, so override this compare to method here. I will override here. Okay, inside this compare to method we need to write logic for sorting. So on which, here I want to sort using name. So we have this object available and we have this name here. So we can get name from here, and also we have this name available here. So I will use this name dot compare to this o dot get name. So it will sort like we can say ascending order. A will start, it will start from A, then B, then C, then D. Okay, so like this it will sort. Now if you see here, okay, so if you print here, what it will print, it will print, so the Aman first name came here, then K, then M, then R, and J at the last. So if I want to sort using ID, okay, so in that case you need to write this code like this dot ID minus o dot get ID and return this value. So it will sort according to ID, first, second, 10, 11, and 102. So like this you can sort using comparable. Also you can use comparator here. If you don't want to use this comparable, remove from here, comment this method. Using lambda expression, just you need to pass here one comparator here. I will create comparator on one liner. So we have u1 comma u2, and pass this u1 dot get id minus u2 dot get id. It will also sort using this lambda expression. So it is a comparator, nothing but a comparator. We need to pass comparator here. Done. So two ways I have explained. Okay, that is the end of. So this is the first level interview I have completed. Thanks for watching.